Welcome to the Opinionation Podcast, where free speech, opinions, and original thought still matter in America.
Welcome to the Opinionation Podcast, also known as the King Daddy Show. I am your host, King Daddy. I can be found on Twitter and Instagram at OpinionNation84. You can also email us at the show at opinionation84@gmail.com. Feel free to keep the emails coming. I try to answer every one as they come, but there's so many of them I am a little behind. So just let me know if you have something that you would like to discuss on the show, a topic. As a matter of fact, this topic today comes from an email. I can't remember who sent the email because I do not have my phone here in front of me, but the topic of today's show is insurance and the entrepreneur. One of the sayings that I have always heard was that to find something that you love and then figure out a way to make money doing it. And that still holds true. I still believe it with all my heart. I have had several things in my life that I have enjoyed, that I have done either full-time or part-time at one time or another. But here was the problem. I did those jobs. I enjoyed doing them. Wanted to continue on doing them. But once you figure out that you have to figure out your own taxes, you have to find your own insurance, and you also have to set aside money for retirement, you don't make anything. That is a serious problem that we have in this country now, is the fact that people can't go into an entrepreneurial type of venture because they don't have what it takes to have the things that they need to overcome themselves during a time of sickness, permanent injury, or retirement. It's very, very difficult when you're a contract laborer, either for yourself or for somebody else, and you don't actually work for the company who can provide those things, to be able to set aside enough money to do it, to be disciplined enough to do it, and to simply do it. It's not easy. My son is a bread man. He has a bread route that he runs, and he gets paid a fairly decent amount for running bread. He works for someone else who owns the route, but neither one of them offer insurance or any form of retirement. Now, they do have someone who does their taxes, thank goodness. And I guess they could, if they wanted to, set aside some money through the accountant to cover some savings and some expenses and some various things that they needed. But here's the kicker. Your employer primarily has a certain percentage based on what you put into the plan will match your money for you, which basically gives you almost double as years go by of what you've actually put into it yourself. So saving yourself does not give you enough money to retire on unless you're really making a lot of money and putting a lot of it back. Now, I use myself as an example. I worked for the hospital, as I've told you many times before, for a lot of years. When I got sick a year and a half ago and had to leave my job, I walked away from the hospital, and this was just my hospital, and my surgery bill was $250,000. Now, I had insurance through my wife's company. It did pick up a large portion of the proceeds going to the hospital, but I still had to pay my 20% and then 10% later. And then once I reached a certain dollar amount, it did become 0%. but that ended at a calendar year, and we had to start back over at the 80%, kicking in with my 20 and then my 10. So we had to start over. And I have a lot of doctor's appointments even still. Going on a year and a half, I go to the doctor now probably 3 times a month. I pay $75 for a specialist to go to the doctor and $35 for my regular doctor visit, which is not bad. But if I have not met my said deductible, then I have to pay the remaining balance myself. But having insurance really helps. Another thing that I had when I left my job was a large amount of money in my 401k and my profit sharing. Now, I have since used almost all of that money. And I am very thankful that that money was there, because it has helped me get over a hump of recovery to where, on top of already having to worry about my physical health, having that money there, I didn't have to worry about the mental aspect of everything that was going on financially, because I was able to cover it. Now, I don't have much left, but it's okay because it did help me out during the time when I really needed it the most. Now, being retired now, which took place about, I'll say 10 years too early, it's not going to help me out in the long run. And as we know, Social Security, even if it's still there, will not really afford me to live a lifestyle like I could have lived working. And that's the problem that our entrepreneurs have. And those people who are contract workers for other people, they don't have the avenues that we have. And I hear talk all the time from politicians about how they want to start the Medicare for All programs. They want to up the ante on the Medicaid, and they want to do a lot of things, but most of those things take place for now for people who have absolutely nothing. So you have the people who have a lot, who can get insurance and motor on through life without a problem. And then you have the people who have nothing, who can also motor on through life fairly without a problem because they're taken care of by the government. But the problem is, those of them out there who are working their asses off every single day, doing the right thing, putting in, 50, 60 hours a week worth of hard work, but still can't get insurance, still can't get profit sharing, still can't get a 401k, and have a difficult time saving money because they live paycheck to paycheck, those are the ones who are suffering. So my suggestion is that we find a way, not through the government, because the government is involved too much in our lives as it stands. We need to find ways through insurance companies to band together and offer some incentive programs for people like this to be able to have some type of network where they can put money into this network and get cheaper insurance on a wide, broad basis where they don't have access to it now. Because let me tell you, if something were to happen to one of these guys who you say they may bring home $1,000 a week, well, by the time they pay their taxes, by the time they buy some insurance, and by the time they try to save a little bit, they're barely making $13, $14 an hour, even though realistically they may be making $25. But these things are expensive. And then if you factor in that they have children who also need benefits, children need the benefits more importantly over the adult who needs the benefits until something happens and you need to be out of work for 6 months or permanently even, and you have absolutely nothing invested in yourself to be able to prolong through life and do what you need to do. It is virtually impossible for those people who have found their passion. They have taken that passion and they have found a way to make money doing what they love. Because of things like this, they are forced to go find a job doing something that they do not give a shit about, because they have to have the insurance and the 401k and the ability to save. So you have all this passion that is pent up inside of people who would love to go out and build something or start some company and be their own boss and their own entrepreneur. The way that this works in our country has pretty much left them fucked over with the ability to be able to do what they would like to do based on their passion. But now there's a huge brick wall in their way, and they can't go through it, under it, or climb it, because there is so much on the line for them as a family that they can't afford to take that risk. One of the things that used to plague me back in the day, I had many friends of mine, and I've talked about my days, with a wrestling company. And you have a lot of those guys who their passion is to go out and be a professional wrestler. Well, not everyone who becomes a professional wrestler is going to get called to the big time. Not everyone is going to be noticed by a large conglomerate of a wrestling corporation where they can be brought up and earn the type of money and live the type of lifestyle that would afford them the ability to do these things. So these guys who have this passion for doing something like professional wrestling, or you could insert roofing, building buildings, being a plumber, you could insert any of those things into that same hole and it would fit. But they go out every single day and they live their passion and they live their life's dream. But if one wrong move happens and they become injured, they're totally out of business. There is nothing that they can do anymore to help themselves, because they have no way of getting anything or taking it to the next level, because now their career is over. Their passion is dead. They're injured, maybe not injured to the point of lifelong disability, but they're injured to the point where they're never going to be able to do their passion anymore. They're left out in the cold because they can't afford to do anything. So what can we do as a country? Not as a government, but as a country of people, to change the way things are done with life insurance and health insurance and investing, to make it possible for people to be able to use their passions again, to make a living and be able to be successful and have the same benefits that those of us who spent time in corporate America were able to have or had. That's an issue. That's a problem. We have to find a way for people like my son, who goes out every single day, 6 days a week, and delivers bread in the pouring down rain, in the snow, risking his back on a daily basis, picking up those bread trays and pushing and pulling things in and out of his truck. We need to make it possible for people like him, for people like my professional wrestling friends who have been working on the indie circuit for all these years, and they could be one move away from losing everything they have, including their passion. It's a difficult, we're between a rock and a hard place in this country for being able to supply needed things to people who need them the most. We're so worried as a country about giving people who have absolutely nothing something, and the people who have way too much something, that we forget about everyone who rides the fence and walks the middle of the road. Those of them who are walking down the median, who don't necessarily follow a corporate pathway. They're the ones who were left behind. They're the ones who were suffering. They're the ones who were getting fucked. We need to find a way to do something to be able to empower them so that not only can they find their passion, do it to make a living for themselves because it's something that they love, but actually make it viable. That's the problem. Those things are no longer viable for people to do anymore because we don't have a plan. So let's look again at the passion aspect of this. Back in the day, and I'm sure still today, based on some of the YouTube videos and different things that I watch and some of the interviews that I've seen recently, some of those guys who were professional wrestlers working for the indies, they would get in their car and they would drive from show to show, sometimes all over the country, sometimes short trips, sometimes long trips, depending on where the opportunity was, spend their own money for gas, spend their own money for food, spend their own money for car repairs, to go out and risk their neck every single night in a high school gymnasium somewhere because they had chosen to take the passion that was inside of them to do something that they absolutely love to do, but were not given the opportunity to do it fairly. And that is no different, say, for instance, the gentleman who built my outbuilding out back of my house. Now, I don't know exactly what his situation was. I don't know if he worked for the company that he came with, but I'm assuming he was probably a side contractor. So he pulls up in my yard in his own pickup truck, pulling his own trailer, and he has the material laying on the back of this trailer to build my building by himself. So he puts the building together starting from the ground up. By the time he gets to the top of the building, he is up on a ladder hammering shingles and hammering pieces of plywood on top of my outbuilding, which from the bottom of the ground to the peak of the top is probably 12 feet high. Now, 12 feet is not very far. You could fall from 12 feet and you could not get injured. Or you could fall from 12 feet and you could break your leg or break your arm or break your back, depending on how you landed. So here's this guy, he's out here working his ass off, doing his thing, something that he told me out of his own mouth that he was very passionate about doing it, had been doing it for 17 years, and he liked building things. So he took building things, which was his passion, and he took it to the next level and provided on his situation with insurance and other benefits. He was 12 feet away from losing everything potentially that he had built. And that's the same way with those wrestler guys. I mean, not everybody's going to make it to the WWE, and I don't even know if they have a great health plan. I know that they have a substance abuse policy where if one of their wrestlers ends up in substance abuse rehab or whatever, that they'll pay for that. But I don't know exactly what their insurance is like. I guess I need to look into that. I'm not sure if some of these new startup companies in wrestling, like the new AEW or the Ring of Honor or Impact Wrestling, which are other larger promotions, have any type of health benefits for these people who are traveling up and down the road, entertaining us sometimes 3 and 4 times a week. And the larger the company, the more traveling that they do. So some of these guys are on the road for 300 days a year. And it sounds like they really make a lot of money. You know, they talk about these huge contracts that they have. But what happens if one of them ends up with a broken neck or a broken back or a debilitating injury that would prevent them from ever entering the ring again? Some of these guys have been doing this since they were 18 years old, and now they're in their 30s. They've not ever done anything else, and all of a sudden they're injured, have no insurance, and have to pay their own way. Well, regardless of the money that they're getting paid, they're now broke. I had insurance. I had a job that provided benefits. It cost me half of everything that I owned to get out of this situation with one major health scare. Now, I've had injuries over the years, and I've had broken bones, and I've had ligaments torn, and I've had knee surgeries. All of those were repairable and go back to work. So all of a sudden, I was faced a year and a half ago with something that was not permanently repairable. It was operable, but not fixable. They basically have me put back together so that I am alive and that I have the ability to maintain a semblance of what I used to be, but I'm not complete. I had 401k. I had profit sharing. I had insurance. I had savings. I had checking. And now I have a little bit of savings left and a little bit of checking left. And my personal bank account looks nothing like it did a year and a half ago. And I had those things. So we have to find a way to take our young people who have an entrepreneurial spirit, whether it be a passion for picking up a hammer and building a building in someone's backyard, or lacing up their boots, putting on their tights, and climbing in a wrestling ring because that is their passion. We have to find a way to make sure that these people have everything that other people have access to. And we have to find I don't even know what to call it. We have to find an urgency to make sure that this gets done. I don't think the government is a great place to go looking for this urgency to happen. You have one party who all they care about is the rich, and you have another party who all they care about is the poor. And nobody cares about the average Joe walking down the center, because we're supposed to try to figure out a way to make it on our own. Nobody today can live their passion because somebody out there will find a way to kill it if they can. This is King Daddy. This is Opinionation. You have a wonderful day. Send us those emails. Talk to us on social media. Opinionation84. Have a great day.